And there's this book, the Bhagavad Gita. I think that was the main thing that really hooked me in. I've always been interested in anthropology, archaeology, and here's this book they're saying is 5,000 years old. These were really interesting people. At first they all looked the same haircut and the same kind of robes. That was my main service for many years, just going out and showing people the books. And I had some really good experiences with that. Learned a lot, even when it wasn't going well.
Sewing for the deities, that was my first time that I got to sew for the deities, and I did a terrible job. I didn't know what I was doing, but I loved it so much.
There was music all around us all the time, and people singing harmonies and open tuning guitars, slack key guitar. One of my goals was to move to Alachua and to be on Nectar talks, and so here we are. So I don't know what to do next now that that's fulfilled.
Where to go from here? You know?
Yeah.
You've reached the peak of your...
the pinnacle.
pinnacle.
From Alachua, Florida, this is Nectar Talks.
In collaboration with Krishna.com.
And in service to our Bhakti community.
Welcome to the Krishna.com YouTube channel. We're trying to start this series of interviewing devotees about their life stories to really get the human interest story across. You know, people watching these videos are like, why would somebody join the Hare Krishna movement, you know, who grew up in a regular Western household? And what are they getting out of it? And what's, you know? So we're kind of exploring those topics by just having devotees tell their life story, starting with where did you grow up? Where did you grow up? How was that upbringing? And what were some of the pointers that kind of brought you searching towards spiritual life?
I grew up in Hawaii, and my first memories were just riding in a canoe on the beach with riding waves in with all of these shiny, brown, smiling, happy people looking at me, and everyone just seemed really happy to see me, and everywhere looked beautiful. There were mountains and ocean and relatives that took care of me, and I just felt like it's a happy place. But then as I got older, started noticing the difference, and people started treating me differently too. I was the haole and didn't fit in, and but I don't know, just somehow that beginning always made me feel like optimistic. Things are going to work out, it's going to get better. Then moving to California, that was traumatic, leaving Hawaii at 11 years old and going through...
Your family moved to California?
Well, my parents got divorced.
Oh, okay.
And then, going with Mom and my two brothers to California. And it just seemed like if only I could get back to Hawaii, if only I could be 6 years old again, then everything would be great. But that wasn't happening. And at age 18, just took a hitchhiking trip trying to figure out what to do for the rest of my life. I met devotees in San Diego and just thought, okay, this looks pretty cool. A lot of people playing music, dancing, simple music, something very approachable so everybody could get into it. And then there's this book, the Bhagavad Gita. I think that was the main thing that really hooked me in. I just thought this book was so interesting. I've always been interested in anthropology, archaeology, and here's this book they're saying is 5,000 years old. And really? And you can still read this? And this is what people were talking about back then? And so when I hitchhiked back up to San Jose, I decided I would go visit the Berkeley Temple just to study Bhagavad Gita. I'm not going to cut all my hair off. It was like It's like as long as hers. And yeah, I'm just going to read the Gita with these people. But after a couple of weeks, I just stayed in and got into it. And that was the main thing. That's the story in brief.
How about you, Mahara?
Well,
Where did you grow up, and what was that like? And then how did you end up, finding your way to the Hare Krishna movement?
yeah, I grew up in Colorado, and I was pretty. My father was very religious, and so I would go to mass with him every morning, and we would sit around. All of us. We had 9 in our family, but not at that time. But we would sit around this picture of Jesus and pray the rosary. So I was always searching for the truth. But when I went to church, I didn't really feel satisfied. And so I went to college. When I went to college, when I became 16, I stopped going to church. And then when I went to college, I really didn't like how, I got into a lot of bad things as well, but I didn't feel satisfied. I thought, there must be more to life. So I tried reading the Bible, and it didn't really make sense to me. And I just remember crying, "Where are you, God? You must be somewhere." So then this guy at college, he came up to me and gave me a book about Zen. And I thought, this is really interesting, but I want to go find God. So I just started traveling with this person and looking for God. And I ended up at this house that, because I was going to get a job, and that was the only place I knew. This person dropped me off there to help me get some work. And there was a bunch of guys there, and I would just sit at this table thinking, all these people do is drink and smoke, and there must be something more. And so this guy came up to me, and he started talking to me, and we both had the same views about life, like there must be something more to life. So he said, "I've got a really good book for you." And he came the next day with the Bhagavad Gita, the Prabhupada's purple one. And it took me a few days to open it up, and I finally opened it up, and I was like, wow, this is really good. And you don't have to take drugs, and even can give up meat. And those were the people I saw at college. I saw the devotees dancing, and I thought they were on drugs, so I didn't want to go see them because they seemed so strange. But I traveled with that guy to go see the devotees in Boston, because he was from New Jersey. And we went to the temple, and we really liked it. And Bhardraj showed us he came to us and said, "Would you like to see the painting I'm doing?" And he showed us the painting of the cover of the Bhagavad Gita that he was working on, and it was really neat. And the press was there, so they all were talking to us, and they gave us some prasadam. And
Press means ISKCON Press.
Yeah,
so when they were publishing the books there.
Starting up in
the
Boston.
printing press.
Yeah. So they talked to us, and they said, "You guys should come back and just join the temple." And we both said, "Yeah, that's what we want to do," because we found them at out Channing, and Bhardraj had come up to us and said, "If you guys eat this," it was ladus, "if you eat this, you're going to get really high." And we thought, okay, we'll try it. And we did. We got really spiritually high. We were both like, wow, this is really neat. Let's go to the temple. So we ended up going to the temple, and that's when we saw Bhardraj in the press, and they gave us some prasadam. And I wasn't really attracted to the prasadam. Everything tasted like marshmallows, everything, every prep. It was kind of funny.
They had a lot of sugar in those days and everything.
Yeah, so then we said, let's come back. We really wanted to come back. So we said, let's go get our stuff at home. And so he went to New Jersey, and I went to Colorado, and I told my dad, and my dad was like, "No, you can't do that." And I said, I've got to do it, Dad. I can tell it's calling me. And he's like, "No, I don't want you to do that." So I said, well, I have to do it. So I ended up going back to the temple, and the guy that was with me at the temple, he was there too, and I was telling him, guess what happened? And I was trying to talk to him. He was in the temple room, and he was all shaved up. And I said, "George, you won't believe what happened." And I tried to tell him everything. He wouldn't look at me, and I'm like, "Hello, remember me?" He wouldn't look up, and I was like, what's wrong with you?
Because he had joined the monk
Yeah, you weren't
ashram, the
supposed
men's
to.
ashram,
Yeah,
right? And they
this,
told him, you can't be looking at the ladies and talking to them.
Exactly, and this girl came up. She was so sweet. Her name was Devaki, I think, and she said, he can't talk to women. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And so, yeah, that's how I joined anyway. But I didn't stay there too long because this boyfriend kept calling me and asking me to come, and I kept thinking, well, maybe I can do it outside the temple. And then Bhardraj would preach to me, no, you don't want to leave.
What year was this?
That was 1970.
Okay.
So I left for a little while, but I couldn't stop thinking about the devotees, and so I ended up coming back. And I went to the Denver temple, and the thing is, when you were in the temple, they wanted you to go out on Harinam, and that was really hard for me. I was so proud, people were looking at me weird. And
Harinam means public street chanting, kirtan in the streets, right?
Exactly, yeah. And that was so hard for my false ego. And so then when I didn't like that part. And then I went to Denver because we lived in Denver, and I went to visit the temple in Denver, and then I stayed there, and they made me go out too, and I was like, oh no, I don't want to do this. And I also had to clean the bathrooms, and I was like, I had to clean this bathroom every day. And I was like, oh, yuck. And then I thought, I'm just going to go try to do it on my own. But then I couldn't get a job. The only job I could get was cleaning 16 bathrooms a day in a hotel. So I said, I think I want to be a devotee, because I missed it too. It was really in my heart. And I ended up going back, and I went to New Vrindavan because I thought, I won't have to go out if I go there. So I went there, and ended up having to go out. And that was, I know this is called Nectar talks. That was more trauma talks, so I'll save that for a different time. That was a pretty long trauma. But I ended up, after a year there, I got to go to New York for a year and distribute books, and it was really nice. I mean, I didn't like distributing books. I used to cry. I'd go up, they wanted me to distribute because I was pretty good, and I used to go up in Port Authority. I'd sit upstairs and I'd cry for 2 hours, and then I'd say, okay, time's up, you got to go out. So I'd go down and I would start distributing, and it was okay. And Krishna would help me because every week somebody would give me this huge donation, and I knew it was to just help me keep going. So yeah, so that happened for a while, yeah. And then Prabhupada came and I got initiated, but not when he came. They wouldn't let me because New Vrindavan, Kirtananda came and said, don't let her get initiated, because she left and didn't come back. And Jadharani had tried to help me stay in New York because she said, because it wasn't so great in New Vrindavan.
Yeah, in those days there wasn't much infrastructure there. It was pretty
hard, yeah. It was pretty hard, but they kidnapped me actually from New York and brought me to New Vrindavan. But I didn't really resist so much because I probably could have, but I didn't really like going on book distribution. So I thought, well, I'll just go back there and they won't make me go out. But they did after about a year. They made me go out, and that was really, really, really trauma-based, and it was very abusive. There was a lot of emotional and physical abuse and sexual abuse on our Sankirtan party, so it was a really horrible time. Yeah, but we had some strong bonding going on, a lot of the women. It was really, really strong bonds we made. So yeah, and then finally I ended up meeting my husband after I left New Vrindavan, and he was so nice, and I was so traumatized from New Vrindavan, and when I met him, one time I was cooking some cookies for this program that we were going to go to. We weren't married yet, and this was an arranged marriage too. Some Rameshwar and Ganapati Swami, they kind of arranged us, and it worked. But he came in the kitchen, and I had burned 150 cookies, and I was so afraid, like, what's he going to do? Is he going to scream? Is he going to hit me? Or what's he going to do? And he just goes, who cares? Let's make some more. And I thought, wow, this guy's really nice. I got to marry this one. And he has been always really nice.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I went on too long.
No, that's okay. We'll catch up Mitrasena Prabhu and bring him to that point. So you just joined the temple. Where was it again?
Oh, that was Berkeley.
Berkeley. Was Berkeley already the way it is? I mean, was it always an interesting place to join?
Okay, yeah. Berkeley, I was pretty young and inexperienced in the world, 18 years old. I hitchhiked around a lot, but being in Berkeley, there's a lot of unusual people there. And moving into the temple, I was somewhat protected from that, but there would be some people that would come in and they were not fully sane. And I didn't really understand what was going on. I'm talking to some crazy person and I'm just trying to sort out, like, how far do I go with this person? So I learned to discriminate and learned a little bit about that while there. But let's see. When I got to the temple, Haripad was the one that greeted me. He was just the right person to take care of someone like me. He had just started a bhakta program, a program for taking care of new people. And 3 other boys had joined just like within a month before I came in. And so there were 4 of us in this special room. Haripad would come in at 3 o'clock in the morning and push the button on the tape player and play the recording of Prabhupada singing Hare Krishna. And he'd say, "Time to rise and shine for Srila Prabhupada. Hari Bol, up and at 'em, boys." And so we'd get up and on my first day there, first morning, he asked me, "Have you ever bathed in an ice-cold mountain river?" And I said, "Yes." And I started up in Lake Tahoe, and I was just going down the list how we'd camp out, and that was one of the fun things we would do, and soak in the ice-cold water. And he said, "All right, well, you're going to love this." And he said, "Every morning we take a cold shower." And so it was a really good presentation. He captured me with that one. And I thought, this is really good. I can't wait to get back and tell my friends about this.
3 in the morning, we take ice cold showers.
Yeah, we're onto something really good. What a fun idea. And that was kind of the thing back then, as the youth of the 70s. The weirder it was, the more we liked it. We liked weird stuff. And this was about as weird as you could get. 3 in the morning, cold showers, okay. And then he gave me some baggy white pants to wear and a white shirt. And okay, we'll wear these in the temple. It'll make you feel more the part. And I thought, well, okay. And took me into the temple room, and there were some devotees chanting on their beads, and he told me how to chant on the beads. And I was looking at those other devotees. They were chanting, and Haripad told me, these are some of the most elevated people in the world, the most spiritually elevated people in the world, because of their sincerity. And I was looking at them, they're falling asleep, and I thought, well, I'm going to do better than that. Okay, if you chant on these beads, you'll be able to see Krishna. And I thought, okay, well, that ought to take me a week or 2, and I'm going to show them how to do it. And so from the very start, I was determined to be better than everyone else and be more humble. But the more I tried, the more I saw, well, actually this is a little harder. I never tried controlling my mind before and directing it and focusing it. This is a new thing, and okay, so I kept at it.
And this was, you had said, I'm going to try this for 2 weeks. I'm just going to play music with these people. So you hadn't fully committed yet. So how did you get to the commitment? When did you decide, I'm going to just Go for it.
Okay. Yeah, well, living in the temple, learning Bhagavad Gita, all of a sudden, I had been trying to read these books on my own, and I wasn't getting much from them. I knew there was something there. But with these people and the discussions, I was able to actually pick up some of the concepts, and then like, okay, now I get what they mean when they're saying this, and then with that then they could do that, and then they could build up, okay, now we can climb up higher and get higher concepts and understandings, and I was getting better at it. I still wasn't all that bright. But I was starting to get it, and Haripad was there to tell me that the real important thing is staying in the company of other people that are doing this. And if you leave, it's very likely you're going to fall away. And I was thinking, yeah, he's right. I know. And I had a dream one night that I'd gone back. I was riding around on my bike in San Jose and had a beer in one hand and looking for where's the fun happening. And I thought, this is really stupid. I was living at the temple. It was going really well. And here I am doing this. What a waste. And then I decided, okay, I'm just going to stay here. I'm not going to. So kind of having a dream let me play it out. Like, this is where it could go. And it's like, it's just boring. This was a lot more interesting. These were really interesting people. At first, they all looked the same, with the same haircut and the same kind of robes and talking about the same thing. But after a while, you start seeing this guy here is a real character. The cook was totally crazy. Oh man, yeah, wild things going on in the kitchen. But he was serious about his cooking. And in the kirtan, that guy would nudge me and I would nudge him, and we'd get each other going. And every kirtan in the morning, we would dance as hard as we could. It was like we'd put everything into it. And we felt like, okay, this is what we're doing for the world. We're dancing to please Krishna, to keep the world from going off track. And it was almost like if we saw some bad news in the newspaper, we thought, oh, I guess I didn't dance hard enough. But that devotee, Gohita, yeah, when the kirtan really got going, sometimes he'd jump up and do backflips, and but we were dancing really hard.
How about your parents and your family? How did they take it when you joined the temple? When they realized it was more than a 2-week thing?
Yeah, well, I wasn't so much in touch with them anyway. They had 3 other kids, and I guess I was somewhat of a problem for my mother anyway, because I was always like hitchhiking, going off somewhere, and she was probably a little relieved that I was living in a building and not smoking marijuana anymore. And but yeah, I didn't present things very well to her. I could have done much better. But she was tolerant, and she came to visit me at the temple a couple of times and got into dancing on the temple floor. She was a fun person. She was a children's librarian and used to working with kids and putting on reading at presentations with the kids, and just kind of a silly yakety yak kind of person. So when the kirtan was going on, she just jumped in and started dancing around. So that was pretty good. I could have done better though.
Did you come from a Christian or upbringing, or?
A little bit, yeah, but it never was really a strong thing. And then my father was in Hawaii, and so I never got to see him again after I became a devotee, because he passed away the year after. And yeah, he was in Hawaii, and but the relation with my mom really picked up when we got married. Maybe we'll get to that later, or should we jump into that now?
Well, let's talk a little bit about the time before you met each other.
Yep.
So you had just moved into the temple. What was that like in those days? I mean, you already explained it a little bit about the cold showers and getting up early.
Yeah.
But what was the mood like, in Berkeley Temple? What year was this?
75.
75.
And
what were some of the services that devotees would be doing during the day, and what was the atmosphere like?
yeah, well, the thing that was really appealing to me was it was all young people. I mean, the oldest person was 10 years older than me. I'm 28. I mean, everybody's under 30. But these were some really intelligent people that really had it together, and they were managing that big building, they were feeding everybody, and we were going out and we had these books, and we had all of these like grown-up kind of things going on. I mean, that was the thing back then. We all wanted to be part of something that was going to save the world, and yeah, we wanted to be part of the revolution, part of the change. So here's this ready-made thing I could just move right into. Everybody's pretty young. And one of my first services was going out with one of the new guys, Bhakta Spencer, and we were going all over Berkeley with these posters advertising the Sunday feast. And we'd set a couple of milk crates down, we'd stand up on them and put that poster up as high as we could and tack it on. So all over Berkeley, there were these posters, Feast with Krishna. The picture, a silkscreen picture of baby Krishna eating, and the time and the address, and those were all up there about 7 feet, because like in a town like Berkeley, people were always putting up posters, so ours were way up high. Whoever's driving through, you just see each telephone pole has that same poster on it, and that was our job to...
Less likely that somebody else would put another poster over
Yep.
the top if they can't reach high enough.
Never happened. But I guess only tall people saw those. But anyway, that was our service. Just going around, putting those posters up, and then doing the laundry. All of the young men, let's see, there must have been about 50 men, and the women, I don't know, maybe 20, 25, and then down the road was a house where all of the married couples were living. There are a few kids. But for all of the monks, the brahmacharis in the temple, I was doing their laundry. So I'd carry this great big bundle down to where the householders lived, and there were some washing machines there, and I'd wash those and carry it back. No folding, because that was just, we're just pack it all in the bag and bring it there and dump it in the bin, and after you shower, you just go and pick out whatever.
So those were the communal clothing days. Everybody just picked something out of the basket.
Yep.
Okay.
That's the way it was.
That's one way to stay detached, right? Just whatever.
Yeah, and I was just fine with it. Yeah, and then going down Telegraph Avenue to chant in front of the campus, we would do some of that. And yeah, meeting new people, but we weren't bringing in many new devotees for that first year. Haripad just wasn't the kind of person for doing that. He was really good for me. He was very regimented, and it was almost like being in the military, up at 3, go to sleep at 9, and structure was very good for me at the time. That was something I'd never had in my life, and I see how joining the military is good for some people because of that, except for having to go and shoot people and get shot at. Other than that, military is really good. But I always thought we should do something like that. And
there was a cartoon in the mid-'80s in France that was poking fun a little bit on the anti-cult thing, you know, but it was basically describing the life of somebody, and when you first start reading it, you think they're talking about the Hare Krishnas. So you read all the different frames, you know, getting up early, discipline, following orders, blah, blah, blah. You get to the end of it and you realize, oh, they're talking about the military. It's the army. But it was like a little, humorous pun on,
yes.
the guys who are criticizing the Hare Krishnas for being strict and regimented.
But it was something, speaking in our favor, indirectly. And then the next year, Haripad became the Sankirtan leader. And then we started distributing books. And that was a big thing. And I didn't have to cry for 2 hours. But I wasn't as good as you were. When I did go out, it was just kind of mediocre. But going out, showing people books, and that was really putting Bhagavad Gita into action, because there's so much in there about try your best and don't expect any results. And when no results come in, don't get depressed. When big results come in, don't become elated. Just keep doing your service, be equipoised. And distributing books was really a way to put that into practice. You go up to people and just, hi, how you doing? Look at this. And they're like, no, I'm not interested. Get out of here, get a job. And people would say rude things. And you have to be equipoised, because then somebody will say, these books are wonderful. I'm so glad you're out here. You're doing wonderful work. And then it's hard not to become elated, and when that happens. So that was my main service for many years, just going out and showing people the books. And I had some really good experiences with that. Learned a lot, even when it wasn't going well. But I'm not as sincere. I didn't grow up going to Mass and all of that, and so I didn't have that tendency to.
And in those days, I would think that there weren't as many varieties of options of services when you joined the Hare Krishna movement. It was like, Pujari service, cook, and then everybody else goes out either on Harinam Sankirtan, street kirtan, or your book distribution. Back in those days.
Yeah.
It's like, which of the 4 services should I choose?
Yeah, it was pretty simple. And if you did anything else, you were like, people would kind of look at you and wonder, really, is that really necessary?
It was very much a preaching movement, to use that word in the best of sense, as Srila Prabhupada was trying to spread Krishna consciousness quickly around the world, and so people were focused. 2 days after you join the Hare Krishna movement, you're in the temple. Go out on the book distribution. Go out on Harinam. Spread the word to others.
Yeah. When I came there, I said, I'm not going to go out singing on the streets. But that same night, the same day that I got there was a Ishopanishad class going on. I got to sit down and listen to that, and that was really good. I was like, so that's what that book is about. And then they said, we're going to a Crosby, Stills and Nash concert, and everyone in the temple is coming. We're going to sing in front of there. And I said, well, no, I'm not going to do that. And they said, well, too bad. Everybody's going. So I went along, and all right, I guess I'll go along. And there I was with my long hair and singing in front of where everybody was going into the concert. And I gave into it. So the first day I went out. But yeah, it wasn't till like almost a year later that I actually went out with books. But yeah, there's plenty of experiences out on the streets.
How did you end up meeting then? Let's go to that point in time.
Okay.
You were in the same temple together, serving?
No. How should we start this story? Who wants to? You tell your side.
Okay. Well, I wanted to get married, and so I was going to go where my sister was because she's a devotee. She was in France, and I will help you get married. And so I said, okay. And then Rameshwar said, oh, I'll help you get married. I'll try to find someone. So he called around all his temples, and he told me that there was someone in Chicago named Mitra, and I said, okay, I don't know who he is, but a few people came up and told me how wonderful he was, so I thought, well, I'll give it a try. And so I went to Chicago and met Mitra, and yeah, that's how we met, and he was really nice.
How did they pitch it to you? You were a brahmachari. They were like, we need you to bite the bullet. And
Yeah, well, I had been a brahmachari for 10 years, and I thought, okay.
Brahmachari means celibate monk, for those people
Yeah.
who are watching who don't know.
And I thought, okay, 10 years is enough. Maybe it's time. And okay, going way back to high school, I remember watching a documentary, and there was some village in Africa, and they were all celebrating. This couple had been by the village. They just said, this boy, this girl, here you go, here's your hut, and you're grown-ups now. And everybody was dancing and celebrating. I thought, that's really cool. I like that the whole community is behind it, and it's not just me going after someone. I always felt like a predator or something going about it that way. And the fact that this had been arranged, it felt really safe, and I trusted the people who, they said, okay, yeah, this girl, and I know her, and I know you, and I thought, okay, let's give it a try. And it wasn't forced on us. Rameshwar said, we'll just see how the chemistry works. And so there I was in Chicago. I'd been there for 5 years, and put on white clothes, which felt really weird after saffron, which would seem like saffron would feel weird because it just got this bright orange clothes, but putting on white just felt like, yikes, I'm making a statement here. And I had to wait 2 months before she flew out. And in those days, there was no, she couldn't send a picture. We didn't even call each other. I didn't know what she sounded like, what she looked like. I didn't know anything. It was just, there's somebody out there that thinks I might be okay. And then finally, there she was one day at the temple, and I thought, wow, this is really good. I like this. And so we went for a walk and talked and seemed to get along, and she burned the cookies, and that's all it takes. That's how you get a girl.
And you realized that he's a nice, mellow, sweet person.
Yeah, and we sat outside the temple talking for a while because I didn't really know him. And at first I was like, I don't know about this. I don't know if I should do this. And then when he started talking, and like a normal guy, a normal human being, because back then the guys were not very normal. They were a little crazy, at least the ones that I met. So when he spoke normal, like a human being and kind, and I was like, wow, this guy's pretty cool. And so we had fun talking, and yeah, it's good.
Yeah, we could go into all kinds of details about that, but I think we'll save that for a book or something. So it'll be a really fun book.
When we got married, Shama Priya was there, and she decorated me, and then I came out.
Yeah, the wedding was at the temple.
At the temple.
And there was a big crowd. It was it was at the Sunday feast, and my mother came out.
This is Chicago.
She came out to Chicago from California with my two brothers. Sister wasn't able to make it. She had kids. She lived in Hawaii, and my father had already passed on. Her parents were gonna come, and then she said, I don't know about this, and then so she canceled it, and then
They canceled. Oh, I canceled the wedding. Yeah.
yeah, and then
And then I changed my mind the next day.
Yeah.
My dad's like, I just canceled the ticket. I'm not coming out. So, but it was kind of good because my mother wasn't very favorable, and so it would have been not very nice.
no, we would have won them over anyway.
He would have. Yeah, that's true. But it was a really nice wedding. A lot of Indians were there. I mean, we didn't even know we were going to have any kind of a wedding, because back then you didn't have a wedding or
Right, you had the fire
reception,
sacrifice, and that was it.
And
Yeah.
it didn't matter if anyone was there. And
And how many months had it been? When did you come to the
7
temple?
months.
Okay,
Yeah, it'd
so
been
it's in
7 months.
September, and 1985. So we're getting pretty close to 40 years. And she was about to tell the whole story at the wedding. She had her hair all decorated
Yeah,
with
with
flowers.
and I had borrowed a sari because, we didn't have any money. So, and his mother said, "Do you have any wedding rings?" No. Oh gosh! So she ran out to get some wedding rings because we didn't have any money. She was so nice. But anyways, I walked out all decorated, and Mitra goes, "Wow, you look like the Statue of Liberty." And I was like, "Okay, that's pretty embarrassing."
Well, I guess, the flowing robes, Greek goddess kind of statue.
And all the flowers. That was the main thing, just like too much flowers.
I don't even know what I look like. Shama Priya just did all. Yeah, it was fun.
So, and then in those days, I remember householders living in the temple separately in the ashram and stuff. So what happened in Chicago in '85?
Oh, Chicago was really good.
Mm-hmm.
And that was because it was just a handful of devotees running this really large temple. But we had a congregation of a lot of Indian people that were supporting financially and culturally. And and the temple management, they gave us an apartment. My mother gave me money, and with that money I bought a van, and the temple management paid for the insurance on the van. So we had really minimal overhead. They took good care of us, and there's always plenty to eat, and great big walk-in cooler full of produce. And once a week we started doing a program at the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana, and so the two of us we'd cook this great big dinner and pack it in the van, drive down there, and serve it out to like 100 college kids. And we charged them, we asked them for a $2 donation per plate, which just seemed like they loved it. It was a good price. And then when we had our first son, it's like, we need a little money for diapers and stuff. So we just asked everyone, do you mind paying $1 extra? So $3, all you can eat. And we got to keep that dollar. So every week I was getting $80 or $100.
So the $2 was going to the temple.
Yes.
Before that.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
And yeah, it was a really good. Yeah, temple took good care of us. All of our dental work, all of these Indian dentists were taking care of that, doctors, and I thought, okay, this is my retirement plan. I'll just keep doing this. And once a month we were going to this families' homes, it's a group of families, and I would go there to teach their kids Bhagavad Gita. And oh man, we'd pull up in our beat up old van at this great big mansion, and all of these real expensive cars were lining the street. And when we walked in, they would like all give us respect and treat us like we were really special. And the kids loved us. And the parents loved us because we were getting their kids interested. And yeah, so all of those people, they were happy with us. They were donating, helping the temple get going. It was just all around a good situation. But we decided we don't want to live in the city forever. I was talking about the cooking. We spent so much time in that kitchen cooking, and when she was pregnant one hot summer day, I was looking all over for her. She was sitting in the walk-in cooler because there's no air conditioning.
Right.
It gets pretty hot in Chicago. She was sitting in there. She had a chair and like, it's so hot.
So you decided to move out of the city or somewhere else after a while?
Yeah. So we tried various locations, New Taliban and New Orleans, and eventually we settled in North Carolina. But before we go there, anything more about Chicago, sewing, deity stuff? That was...
Yeah, what were some of the services that you had?
In Chicago, because in the other temples I went out on book distribution, and that was really nice. I mean, Tosan Krishna in New York, he was my Sankirtan leader, and he was really nice. But it was really nice there that everybody went out, and so it was a real team effort. It was hard for me, but
it probably makes it easier on the motivation when everyone's doing it, and it's just like, okay, everyone's doing it, I got to figure it out.
And I got to go out with Jadharani, so that was really nice. She was amazing out there. She could get anyone to take a book. So it was nice to be with her, and so that happened. And then in New Vrindavan, it was, for 1 year I didn't go out, but then I had to go out again. There was a Sankirtan party, so all the women, we would go out every single day, and so that happened. And then, then in Chicago, it was, cooking and sewing for the deities. That was my first time that I got to sew for the deities, and I did a terrible job. I didn't know what I was doing, but I loved it so much. And so I mostly did that, and then we moved, to North Carolina, and I took up deity sewing because I got better at it. I learned in New Taliban. We were in New Taliban for a little while, and Shranti was there, and she helped me learn how to sew for deities. So that became how we made some more money in Chicago and North Carolina. When we moved to North Carolina, we moved to Prabhupada Village. We stayed there for quite a long time.
And you had mentioned when Mukunda was born, that was when you were still in Chicago.
Yeah.
And then you also had another son.
Yeah, we had 3 boys, but one passed away.
Okay.
When we were in Baltimore, he had anencephaly. He lived for 8 days, and he had anencephaly, so he didn't make it. And so then we moved to Prabhupada Village, and we had Goran Ryan,
And what was that like, raising 2 teenage boys?
Well, Mukunda was hard. It was difficult with Mukunda. He had some abuse in Chicago. It was very bad. Something happened, and we tried to help him, but it was really hard for Mukunda. He's had a hard time, a hard life. But Goran Ryan's always been like really easy, whereas Mukunda was hard, troubled. But Goran Ryan's been good. He's really a nice. They're both wonderful, but Goran Ryan's been easy, and he's always taking care of us now. He's always concerned about how we're doing and whatever he can do to help us. So we're very fortunate.
So in Prabhupada Village, North Carolina, devotee community, was there a school? Was there a Gurukul for
There
the kids?
was, yeah. Ruchira and Asasaki and Harkanta were, and Madame Mahini were heading it up. And Mukunda said those were his favorite years. With all the kids, and they played. They had their own soccer, and they had nice, really good education.
Was it Paramarupa? Somebody ran a Boy Scout troop?
Yes,
For the boys?
he did. He did a great job,
Yeah.
and the boys loved it. And Mukunda was on that, and Gordon Ryan he got his Eagle Scout. Paramarupa was very surprised that Gordon Ryan would do that, because he was more like, it didn't seem like he was so interested in it. He would bring his book to try to bide some time, but I'm going to be an Eagle Scout, so it was a nice community with a lot of, in some ways it was tough too. There's a lot of things going on there that weren't so great, but there was a lot of good.
When all the kids were there, it was really happening,
Yeah.
mostly because of the school and the focus on the kids and the Boy Scouts, and we had helped build each other's houses, and so the kids could be like, I'm going to go visit Kirtan, and okay, they just walk out the door, walk across the field, cross the creek, and then go up the hill.
Yeah.
We didn't have to worry about.
Yeah.
They didn't even have to see the public road. You could spend weeks without touching the pavement. You could just be there and playing with kids, throwing rocks in the creek, and it was really good. But then problem is all those kids grew up, and we didn't have a fresh batch to replace them. We tried.
Mm-hmm.
We had Narayan and Vishambar and Govinda, but then they ended up moving off.
So the kids moved out. You guys are still up in North Carolina, and what happens? You decide to go somewhere else.
Yeah, we just got restless, and it was time to try something else. And actually, here is a book kind of about it, and you're in it.
I'm in it. Wow, amazing.
It's about to get published.
I don't know if anybody can see this over here, but we can show it later on the screen. But
Yeah. This is about doing that bus tour, the 20th annual one.
2015 was the 20th, I think.
2015, yes. And so touring all over America, our house was up for sale, and that's what the book is about. I had this really wonderful job, but I just lost it a couple weeks before the boss called up and said, we don't need you anymore. And okay. And she said, you've already committed. You got to go on that bus tour. You can't just, they're counting on you. Okay. And so
And Gordon Ryan came on the tour. Your son was there with you. Yeah.
Yes. And so after that, he goes to college, and that'll be the next book as well. He's in college. We moved in with him in a little tiny apartment in Boone, North Carolina.
Okay.
And that is kind of like our renaissance. It was like, okay, the kids are growing up, and now we're getting back to being like what we were when we first got together, which was, we would go to a college, go to the University of Illinois, and sit out there and sing and meet people and invite people to dinner. And so we were kind of reenacting that. How many years later? 30, what year? 2015, 1985. How many years is that? 20? 30. 30 years later.
I'm not that good with head math either, so yeah.
30 years later, there we are. We're reenacting our... So that'll be the next book. But this one's about being on the tour and all the fun kids kid stuff going on. And you telling everyone, be careful, don't go near the edge of that waterfall. Okay. So, yeah, Prabhupada Village in North Carolina, that was like, wow, it was a chance for me to do all kinds of things I always wanted to do. Build a house, grow a garden, not just a garden, but like a farm. I had a tractor. I could plow up acres of land and plant big fields of wheat. And I bought a combine so we could harvest that wheat. And we had a mill. We were grinding wheat for everybody in the community. And yeah, it was just so fun to sit down. We had these giant plates, and she would cook these elaborate meals, and like, okay, here is the rice that we grew, here's chapatis from the wheat that we grew, here's potatoes.
You would grow your own rice?
We tried one year.
Challenge, yeah.
It's really not that hard to grow. The hard part is getting the skin off of the rice.
Okay.
And so that's why we didn't do it. It was like, anyway. So vegetables, we had our own bees and honey and water from the well. And so we'd look at a meal and like, okay, 80% of this is what we grew. And so that was gratifying. And having a whole group of other families, we did a thing once a month for a while, entertainment night. 2 families would get together and try to come up with some kind of entertainment, put on some kind of show for everybody else. And so with a community like that, it was really healthy. But then as the kids moved away, and then the focus kind of changed, and then it just kind of became like people found out we weren't seeing eye to eye on everything. And without having a big project of kids to take care of, then those differences became more prominent. And it became a little uncomfortable because we're so close. It's sort of like being married to all of those people.
Right, because, all of the relationships that develop around the kids and all the families getting really close and getting to know each other really well.
Yeah. But meanwhile, we would come down here and visit for the Kirtan festival every year. And we always just thought, okay, one of these days we're moving to Alachua, but we're saving it for dessert. Because once we're here, that's it. That's like...
And when did you start building your own custom instruments? Because for those people who don't know, what we see of you is like the guy who shows up with like a hand-built something, and plays it.
I should have brought one.
Yeah.
So, the fascination of building your own stringed instruments. When did that start?
Okay. Well, there's a story Prabhupada told when it was his last visit to America, 1976. He was in New York City and marveling at how things had become so big in just 10 years. He said 1966, he founded the society. 1976, they've taken over Fifth Avenue. They got this big parade. And so he was talking with a handful of devotees, and he said there was a man who found a pumpkin shell, a gourd that had been discarded. And then he found a stick, and he found a wire. And so he took all of those thrown out things and put them together and made a tambura and made beautiful music. And he said, in the same way, I found all of you the rejected refuse of your society. You were just hippies.
The hippies, yeah.
Yeah,
hippie generation.
To him, these looked like rejected people. For us, we were just thinking
you had rejected everything else.
We're cool. But to him, it was like, these are like not very together people. But okay, they've got no place in society. I'll take them and put them together. And then he said, and so I've put you together, and look what I've created. So I was always curious about getting a gourd and a stick and a wire and making something. And so one of our neighbors up the road, just some backwoods kind of person, farmer, he'd grown these gourds and he had them drying up on his front porch, and I stopped to talk with him about something else, and I said, by the way, what are you going to do with those? And so he gave me the biggest one. And I thought, wow, I could make a tambura with that. I could do a lot of things with that. And so I took it home, but I was afraid to cut into it without knowing what I was doing. And so I started experimenting with tin cans. And you tap on a can, it makes a noise, those big cans. I drove a stick through it and I put a wire across it and twanged it, and it made a pretty nice sound. And then I got a empty bottle for a slide, and I put 2 more strings on, and it actually turned into some pretty good music. I'll have to bring it into the studio next time.
We'll put in that cameo insert, filming you with all of your wonderful instruments that you've built.
All right. So, yeah, then I just started building all kinds of things, but she was like, you got all this junk laying around. So I just started giving them away. And so now I only have 3 of them. But I haven't been doing much of that lately. I've been mostly working with other instruments and people and singing. And okay.
And you're pretty good at playing the guitar. Did you already come to the movement playing guitar, or when did you pick that up?
Oh, yeah. Well, growing up in Hawaii, there was music all around us all the time, and people singing harmonies and open tuning guitars, slack key guitar, and that was one of the things I miss. Anyway, I played a lot of guitar from, let's see, in the 4th grade, our teacher taught the whole class how to play ukulele, and so that's where I got started. Playing ukulele at, how old are you in 4th grade? 10 years old. So 10 years old, and then when I was 13, my mother bought me a guitar, and that became a big part of who I was. And then when I moved into the temple, they just said, nah, these instruments have connotations, all the songs are about material things, so we're not going to play them. And so I gave up my guitars, but anyway, somehow a guitar came to me a few years later, and I started up again. Okay, and in North Carolina, where we were living in the country, just about everybody plays guitar. And they sing, and they can sing harmonies, and they sing gospel music. And so that was something that we developed while we were there, was how to have a kirtan with guitars, and in that gospel, bluegrass kind of style.
In other words, talk to people in the language they understand. So if you're out there among the locals there in North Carolina, that's one way to communicate through music.
Yeah, he was famous in Stokes County. I mean, one guy came out and said, "What's your name?" And he said, "Mitra." And he goes, "Mitra, you're famous in Stokes County." He knew so many people there. He played music with them, and he's really good with people. He used to bring a lot of people to the temple. He'd have sustainability festivals and George Harrison Festival, and people loved him. I would see him, like, if I'd be out shopping, "Oh, you're with Mitra. Is he ever going to have another one of those festivals?"
And there was this girl, Erin, she must have been like 15 years old, and she started coming to our temple, and I asked her, are your parents okay with this? And she said, "Yeah, my dad knows you. You were at the back porch fest playing guitar with them till 1 o'clock in the morning. And so he thinks you're all right." So that's the connections we were making with those people, mostly through music. And when I was organizing those festivals, was going around I was going to local events and handing out invitations. And people said, if there's music, I'll be there. And so I made sure there would be music at those events. And it would be their kind of music. Local musicians would come. We set up the stage, and so the musicians would come, the people following the musicians would come, and yeah, it worked out really well.
Mm-hmm.
I was inspired by Charu. He gave a presentation on how he was developing things in Utah, because he's not a musician. He'll admit that, and he'll threaten, like, if you guys don't sing, I'm going to start singing, and you're not going to like it. But he would get local bands to play at his temple for events. Mm-hmm. And by doing that, he would get the followers of the band, and other people would come, and the band would get exposure, and it became like a prestigious thing to play at the Hare Krishna temple in Utah. And so I wanted to get something like that going at our place. But that was one of the things that a lot of the other families didn't see eye to eye with, and I get it, I understand. But I thought it would be worth a try. I had to try it out. So yeah, that's one thing. I got to try things. I experiment. I'm not afraid to try stuff. Yeah. And I think when people, as we get older, we become less inclined to try things, and I think that's where the youthful energy is really important. Like, what do I have to lose?
Right. So you had said that you had found a love in making clothes for the deities, mm-hmm. and that kind of has become a passion of yours over the years.
I was trying to do some healing work as well, but it didn't satisfy me as much as working with the deities, because I was always thinking about the deities and different devotees, deities that I was sewing for, so I really loved that. And I was always able to, I was like thinking about the deities all the time, so I liked sewing, and I liked creating outfits, so I did that a lot, yeah.
And you're still doing that these days?
I haven't been, because I've been really sick for a couple of years. I actually didn't know if I was going to make it, but I'm starting to come out of it and get a little better, so I'd like to do that. But I mostly want to, I would like more to help, if we could do something with devotees, help in some way, serving the devotees. That's become more of my desire now, is trying to do something to enliven devotees or help them. We have a class every night. Mitra puts on a class, Bhagavatam class, and a lot of devotees get online. It's a Zoom call, so that's really nice. But we want to do more things, more outreach. That's what
outreach and inreach, as we call it these days. You know, when you have a huge community, sometimes it can feel lonely. You come to a festival or you come to the Sunday feast and there's 800 people. Mm-hmm. It's like you're just, nobody talks to you if you don't have a group of friends, to hang out with. Mm-hmm. So finding the smaller communities within the community and creating those, spaces where people can come together and meet, or, these Zoom Bhagavatam readings. Mm-hmm. I keep gravitating back to the music because I feel it's kind of like a theme. It's like, spreading Krishna consciousness through music is kind of what, if I had to figure, what was Mitrasena's purpose in life, like he can connect with people through the music, and then the conversations happen, and just, having those heart-to-heart moments.
And we've been singing a lot together, and that's what we want to do more of, so.
And you had brought something with you, a little recording on your phone. Maybe you can play that for us. You can even just hold it up to your little mic here. A sample of what you're working on these days. Beautiful.
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare
beautiful. It's very meditative and using also the guitar again and harmonies and, you know, ways that I think that people can relate to because it's not weird to them. It's not foreign, you know. It's not, except for obviously the lyrics are Sanskrit. But.
Yes, and it tastes good, and it's not painful.
Yeah.
That's the thing. As I'm getting older, I don't enjoy the loud music as much as I used to. We used to crave it. We used to really want it loud. We'd go to rock concerts and we'd turn on our stereo and it would be blasting loud. There's something about youth that you want that, but then after a while it's like, okay, let's listen to something a little more sophisticated, or a little more simple, but just not so loud. It doesn't need to be so driving. Okay, so goals. One of my goals was to move to Alachua and to be on Nectar Talks, and so here we are. So I don't know what to do next now that that's fulfilled.
Where to go from here? You know?
Yeah.
You've reached the peak of your
the pinnacle.
pinnacle.
And we got a book almost ready.
Yeah. And you have another book that you're working on.
Bunch of books, yeah. And so these books, tying it back to like my mother, she was a librarian, and she would read lots of books. Our house was full of books. And I thought, okay, I got this Bhagavad Gita, I got these really cool books. She'll read it, she'll understand what I'm about. But she never read it. It was just not the kind of book that she would read. And then finally one day, she said, I finally read a Hare Krishna book, and I really liked it. Now I know how you guys live. And it was just this awful thing written by someone that was trying to make us look bad, and it was a docudrama, and not very accurate, and not very flattering. And I said, Mom, that book is garbage. She said, no, I loved it. Because it had a plot, it had chase scenes, it had adventure. And I thought, okay, we need some books like that. And so she passed away many years ago, 1996. But I just always thought, we need some books that someone like that would read. And so that's what I'm attempting to do here. It's a book with just stories. I'm not like not trying to convince someone to be a devotee or to think a certain way. It's just, here's the story, here's what I'm doing, here's what I'm going through, and I want to write more books like that. And I know one of them's really going to hit. There's some story in there, probably the story about how we met, and stories of being a truck driver and the people I met along the way, stories of farming, building houses.
Yeah, I mean, as I'm hearing you talk, I'm thinking, you know, the person who's watching from the outside in, who has a preconceived idea of what Hare Krishnas are, what they do, etc. Kind of when you said when he first talked to you, and you realized he's talking like a real human being. He's not just a robot. He's not some stuck-up, you know, monk who can't talk to a woman or something, you know. But when people see that Hare Krishnas can just be normal human beings with kindness in their hearts and doing all kinds of things, like, you know, all the adventures you've had, you know, on traveling on the bus tour, driving our bus, driving trucks, having farm implements and farming and growing your own rice in North Carolina. You know, I mean, the adventures, you know, of a Hare Krishna devotee. It doesn't have to be so stereotypical, like, oh, you know, that just the shaved-up monk who lives in an ashram and doesn't talk to anyone, you know.
So that's been my strategy for years. When I was living so remotely in North Carolina, when I would meet people that showed any interest at all, I would just ask them, would you like to stay in touch? I send an email out once a month, and a lot of people were into it. And these were just like country people I met at a gas station, or at a music festival or something, and so I would just take a little story, something that happened, interesting person I met, or something funny that somebody said, and I'd send it out. So I haven't been doing much of that lately. Facebook has kind of replaced that, but I still do it once in a while, and I'm surprised when I'm out of the blue, I'll meet somebody that says, I'm on your email group. And every time you send a story, like I share it with my wife. She's always excited to hear, what's Mitra up to? And I just felt like, okay, I'm not telling them this is the way you should think, this is what you should practice. I'm just saying, here's what I'm doing, here's how I'm dealing with this, here's this interesting situation I got in. I just feel like they're seeing the world through my eyes for a few minutes, and then that's enough. And they see me as a friend and someone approachable. And once in a while, those people will write me with a question or something they're going through, and they want a little advice, and I'll give it cautiously. I don't like to push things on people. Instead of preaching, just take that P off the front and reaching.
Reaching.
Yeah, because the P is kind of
A lot of people would say
pushing.
T for teaching, but reaching is nice.
Reaching,
Connecting,
yeah.
reaching out. Yeah.
Yeah, just reach out. How you doing? And
Yeah.
here's what I'm doing.
I just want to say, when we first had our first son in Chicago, he took Mukunda and he said, I'm going to go show everyone my ray of Vishnu. And I was like, wow, like we were always told you're not supposed to be attached to your children, So I was like, he's so cool. Like he thinks it's great having a kid. And so he taught me a lot. He helped me a lot to calm down and be normal.
Still working on it.
He's definitely still working on it.
Secrets to a happy marriage.
Okay.
Having a nice husband.
Yeah, being a nice husband. I don't know. I really don't know anything about it. People ask me, and it's like, I don't know. I never had a girlfriend before. I've never done anything like this, and I just find myself in the middle of it, and here we go. I'm just flattered that somebody would be interested in me.
He never doesn't make fun of me, like
Not much.
in the past days, not much, yeah. That's what I noticed about some devotee men. They would criticize their wives in front of others, and he never does that. And he respects me if I have a question. He never tells me I'm stupid or dumb or I don't have any brains or I shouldn't ask a question.
Which in the early days of the
Yeah.
Hare Krishna movement, one
Very
would have
much
heard.
so.
Yeah.
Very much. Like we were terrified. Everything. I know I said when I first met him, I'm sorry. And he's like, you don't have to say you're sorry all the time. It's okay, you can sleep more than 3 or 4 hours. But he's always been really he helped me transfer over to being a somewhat normal person, whereas before I don't know what I was. I was a fanatic, I guess. But he helped me a lot. He's always been really kind, and you can go to him and ask him questions, and he'll listen to you. Gordon Ryan's a lot like that, too. He'll sit and listen. He doesn't ever make you feel like you're not worth talking to. So he's always made me feel like he loves me, and that's really, I think everybody needs that. That's what I feel like we always need to love the devotees, because everybody needs love, and that helps more than anything. I think it's the most important thing about being a devotee is to love others. Be kind, because there's so much hate in the world, and even when you see it with devotees, it's so sad. Like, we're so worth it. We, every devotee counts. Even the ones that left, and why be abusive to them? They did so much before, and just remember all that. Lord Chaitanya always saw what someone would be in the future. But he's always been really nice.
So there's the secret, just appreciate, try to find something to appreciate, and don't be shy to say it. Sometimes us guys, we have a hard time expressing appreciation, especially growing up my teenage years in California. Like if you did anything nice, that was just not cool. It was not a manly thing to do. And that kind of affected me more than it should have. I've seen a lot of my friends had grown out of that. My high school friends, I'm still in touch with a few of them. They'd grown out of that years ago. But to be bold enough to just say, that was really nice what you did there, what you said, and a little bit of that goes a long way. Everyone wants to be appreciated, respected, cherished, and it takes practice. So we can practice it. Initially, it may feel a little awkward, and it did for me initially to try to be like that. But I thought, this is what I want to be, and so it seems like it's become part of my nature. She seems to think so.
Did it ever, I mean, it must have occurred to you, not a coincidence, but, that your name actually means friend, right?
Yeah.
Mitra.
Friend of many, Mitrasena. Before I met him, Rameshwar said, okay, you're going to go meet Mitra, and we call him Mitrasenatra.
Well, the whole name is Mitrasena, and so Mitrasenatra.
Because he can sing really well.
Do people know about Frank Sinatra anymore? I don't know if that's a joke anymore.
Yeah.
That was old school even for us back then.
Thank you so much for coming and talking to us, sharing your life stories and advice. And if we had a little bit more time, I would have asked you, what's your advice for the future generations? What are your hopes for the future?
What always comes strong to me is how fast time passes and how much it's so important to do something, like don't waste your human form of life. And you can really see it when you get older. Like, I'm so glad I became a devotee at 19. And these kids were born as devotees, and it's so easy to get caught up in like, well, I got lots of time, I can watch a movie. And I mean, I'm not saying don't watch movies, I'm just saying try not to waste any time if you can. Try your hardest to, you have to be practical, but at the same time, try to do something for Krishna and Prabhupada and your gurus and your friends, and try to do something for the devotees, because this is a really rare human form of life, and you really, really see it when you get older. And that's why I just want to, you don't want to pressure anyone or tell someone do this, but I don't know, it's like I just want to help them so that when they get old, they're like, wow, at least I did something.
Yeah, the luxury that perhaps the current generation doesn't understand is that, like you were saying, you joined the Hare Krishna movement at 19. You had these amazing adventures together in Krishna consciousness, right? Just fully absorbed.
Yeah.
And, for some of us and some of the younger generation, they may think like, oh, I'm going to get a successful career, and then when I retire at some point, then I'll do all of that, you know? But you don't have the energy at that point anymore, to do all of.
I know, you're just like, it's really, and you don't know if you're going to get sick or a disease. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
you're strong, and that's what Prabhupada always said, you're strong now, do something. I know. if I could just, like, if you could just have that, like, that realization, if you could just, come on, everyone. But
Youth is wasted on the young, they say,
Yeah.
right? And wisdom is wasted on the old or
yeah.
something.
But it's nice to, I love to encourage the youth because they're so amazing
Mhm.
too. They're such amazing, beautiful devotees, these youth. Wow. They're so amazing in what they were in their past life. Like Prabhupada said, these kids are attracted, and so they just they didn't quite make it in their last life, and so he keeps saying, but don't let them waste time. Yeah, so to always encourage, I think that's really important, to encourage and not force. Yeah.
So I've got something. So the youth have taken kirtan and really built it into something big, and they brought in all of their youthful energy and creativity and transformed it. And so another aspect of kirtan that I predict they're going to get better at and just like completely transform is the Srimad Bhagavatam. The person who has achieved perfection by kirtan is Shukadeva Goswami. He's not known for playing mridanga or harmonium and singing. It's for speaking Srimad Bhagavatam. I predict that the youth are going to take Bhagavatam presentation and do something really amazing with it, because that is a big part of kirtan. Kirtan isn't just singing Hare Krishna, it's describing Krishna. And I think these kids are going to work some kind of magic with that. That's my prediction, that's my encouragement, empowerment, whatever you want to call it.
And also, if kids have had any kind of trauma, I say go for therapy, go do everything you can to get balanced. Because if you're not balanced, you can't really do anything with your Krishna consciousness. You just feel so out of it all the time. So I really, really encourage therapy or help from someone. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for everything that you do. Oh my gosh.